This, my friends, is the PCT.
I feel on top of the world.
Oh no, it's happening again. Trouble sets in, waiting for the dividend.
Hello, my name's River, and today I want to talk to you about hitchhiking on a through hike. Hitchhiking can be avoidable, but it's a lot of effort to avoid it. Basically, it's a whole lot of extra walking that you might not have to do. And the times that hitchhiking occurs on a through hike is when you get across a road and it leads into a town, and that would be a really good chance to resupply and buy more food. So it happens pretty often while you're hiking. Some people really prefer not to do it, but it makes your life so much easier if you go with it, and you meet heaps of crazy people and get some awesome stories and get to meet the locals. So I really enjoyed hitchhiking. It was my first time ever hitchhiking, was being out there in the US, and it was something that was a little bit nerve-wracking at first, but it very quickly became very natural. Some fun facts about hitchhiking for me was that majority of the people I found picked me up were retired ex-servicemen. So I don't know, people who were just really service-driven in their life and their career. It was always just old men, and as strange as that sounds, I really made a point of never hitchhiking alone, so I didn't really feel unsafe getting in the car with them. And then once you get in there and you hear what they've done all their life and, you know, serving their country, and it's such a selfless job that they've had all their life, it's, I guess, no surprise that they just continue to help people they find on the side of the road hoping to get a lift into town. The other majority of the people I found picked me up were mothers who just would pick us up and say, oh, like, I would really hope that no one ever leaves my kids on the side of the road, so I'm going to pick up other people's kids. I think being a female probably helped a lot. And like I said, I never hitchhiked alone. That was just for safety. And well, yeah, for safety. I made a pact with some of the other hikers that we'd never leave each other to go alone. And we stayed true to that as well. So firstly, I think we need to just accept the fact that we are stinky hikers, and that's going to really detract a lot of people. But be considerate of that fact. As soon as you get into a car to hitchhike, wind down the window. It's don't make it any worse than what it has to be. You're getting into like a little sealed vehicle with all of your hiker stanks. So get in there and wind down the window. People will just think it's normal. Okay, yeah, sure, you want some fresh air, and they won't realize that you're actually giving them some fresh air before they have to awkwardly realize that, holy shit, hikers stink, and now they need to wind down the window and like be awkward about it. So first things first, do everyone a favor. Get in the car, wind down the window. But it is often pretty common to be just in the back of a ute or a truck anyway, so if that's the case, it's not a problem. Hitchhiking, you're meeting strangers, so there's got a lot of potential for some awkward conversation or forced conversation, and it was, you know, I guess it's kind of our responsibility to be somewhat entertaining. Like, there's got to be something in it for the driver, right? So I really had a handful of go-to questions that I always used whenever I got into the car. So firstly, I'd introduce myself. Oh, I'm River, I'm hiking the PCT. They were always really interested to hear about what we're actually doing. And for the sake of, put yourself in the perspective of a driver, you're helping someone out in a random act of kindness. You kind of want to hear about what they're doing, how you're contributing to that trip, and live through their stories for like a short period, even if it's, you know, during a drive to town. And completing a through hike, regardless of which trail it is, it's fascinating to a lot of people, and especially people who have never considered doing something like that before. So they love to hear about it. So share your journey and what you're doing. The fact that I'm Australian, it was like a double win. It gave me a lot to talk about. People were fascinated that, you know, I've come from the other side of the world to through hike. So they wanted to hear all about what life back home is like. And there was always so much conversation to have around it. Hitchhiking isn't just about you, the hitchhiker, but the driver often wants to feel included as well. And it's really nice for you to ask about them. You know, did you grow up here? Where are you from? Have you done a hike similar? Like, what are good places to hike around here? Because I found that the people that I met hitchhiking I just got the randomest stories as well. So, you know, they might have lived a crazy life overseas or here, or had some really wacky jobs. Even the places like the servicemen I spoke to, the places they've been and the things that they've done were just incredible. And you know, it's part of travel. You meet different people, you hear about different walks of life, and it's just an extension of that. So it was really, really nice to give them a platform to say, hey, you know, you get to hear all about me. I'm interested in you as well. And it humanizes a lot of people, giving them a chance to talk about themselves and what lights them up and everything that they'd love to share with hikers and travelers and people that they meet. And then I also found it was really, really good to ask about the town. So many people just have so much pride in their town and the fact that travelers are coming to visit it. And they just share so many great tips of like hideaway places that you can go and camp, or great bars or local cafes to check out. And there's so many things that we'd never know. I remember, you know, getting into Ashland, the person that gave us a lift, they told us where the local fig tree was that was fruiting. And so we just went out to this park and just ate figs until we couldn't fit anymore. And it was just such a great memory, and I wouldn't have that if it wasn't for chatting to a local on a drive and saying, you know, what should we do while we're here? Like, and it was, yeah, there's so many good stories that come from just asking about them and the town, and hopefully they're local and can share a lot of knowledge with you. Something that I always try to do when I'm hitchhiking is carry a little bit of money. It's not expected to tip or give them or pay for a ride or anything like that, but it is a really big gesture for you to offer a little bit of money for their time, for the fuel, for the effort, especially if they're going to make a slight detour for you. A lot of people are already passing through, but I would always say thank you so much, can I offer you a little bit of money for the trouble? And most of the time they would say no, and they would decline and say no, like, your conversation has been great, or, you know, it's just so nice to be able to help people. And like, a lot of people don't have any avenues to volunteer or contribute to society because volunteering regularly is a big thing, right? So giving someone a ride somewhere is such an easy way for them to feel like they're contributing and like they've done a good deed. So often they don't take the money, but it can be really rude if you just assume that it's a free ride. I'm only talking like $5, $10. If it's a really long way, and I hitchhiked like 800 miles when I flipped. So obviously that's gonna be a little bit more, and that's when you start really seriously looking at splitting the cost of fuel or shouting a tank of fuel for them. But on the short trips, it doesn't need to be much. It's about the gesture, and it's about showing gratitude for their act of kindness. So it's just really good just to keep a bunch of small notes on you pretty much at all times, just if you're gonna hitchhike into a town. So my tips for actually getting a lift when you're standing on the side of the road, you've got your thumb out, make an effort. I would say always stand, or even start walking into town. You need to show that you're making an effort and you're not just expecting a ride. So yeah, always, I would never just sit by the side of the road with my pack there and just hitchhike. I think that looks really lazy, and you need to be able to, you need to look interesting as well. They're not going to pick you up if they legitimately think you're homeless. And guess what? We're through hikers. We already look homeless. You might as well try and look a little bit more friendly. I will always smile at the cars as they go past, because again, it makes you look friendly and approachable, and you are counting on that. So put in a little bit of effort. And same with people that are walking. You know, some locals especially, they're really familiar with the PCT and they know exactly where the pickup is. And if they see you walking along and be like, shit, they've already walked half a mile, they're going to try and walk into town, I'm going to stop them and save them from having to do that. So, and guess what? If you don't get a hitch, that's what you're going to have to do. So be prepared for that as well, because sometimes roads are really, really quiet and there won't be there might be 2 cars per hour, and you know, you've got to be a pretty lucky hitchhiker to get one of those lifts. So be willing to put in the effort if you can't get that lift as well. Something else that happened really, really commonly was hitchhiking with groups, and that is hard. It's easy with 2 people. Often people have 2 seats free, and the bigger the group gets, the more intimidating it is. When you think about the numbers in a car, there's 1 driver and they're putting a lot of trust into strangers, letting them into the car as well. So Again, do yourself a favor, make everyone look as friendly and welcoming and polite as possible. Often what we do is we would spread out. Obviously, you're not going to get 8 people into a car. You might get lucky again with people that are pulling up with a ute or like a tray or a truck or whatever you want to call it in the US. But everyone can pile in the back then, that's fine. But that automatically eliminates half the cars driving past. If you're going through, a sedan, they're only going to fit 2 or 3 people. So what we ended up doing was I was always going first. Having a female to represent the group is genuinely far less intimidating for the drivers. So I was token female and in short shorts. So I would always go first, and we'd either be walking or standing. And depending how big the group is, sometimes we'd have half the group sit down and have maybe 2 or 3 people standing. So it obviously looks like we're not all expecting to get a lift at once. It's kind of like if you're in a queue, right? You take a seat. It's not my turn. I'm not waiting for a lift. These guys were here first. But if not, and if there is a big group of you, you can walk in a line or stagger yourselves 2 or 3 people a few meters apart. When you think about it, drivers are driving past and they've got about 2 or 3 seconds to make a decision if they're going to start slowing down and pulling in, especially if it's on a highway with really high speeds. Even if they want to, sometimes they simply can't stop. So that's another thing. Make sure you're never on a blind corner, and try and line yourself up with a shoulder or a place that they actually have space to pull over, because if it's too hard or too dangerous for them, no one's going to stop. So be strategic about where you're standing, but also spread out. So the further you spread out, the more thinking time you're giving them to decide if they're going to stop or not. When you're hitchhiking with groups as well, make sure that that person that's standing up and sort of representing everyone, when the car pulls in, don't have everyone swarm to the car. The driver doesn't know our intentions, you don't know their intentions. Have that one person that was standing there go up and have a conversation with them. Say, hey, look, I'm River, I'm hiking the PCT. Me and my mates were hoping to be able to get into town. Would you have a few seats, and how many people are you okay to take? And it's, again, you have to avoid being as intimidating as possible. And as well-intentioned and harmless as we are, the driver doesn't know that until they've had a conversation with you. Something else I found to be really successful was making a sign with the location that you're hitchhiking to. So we actually just had a plain sign and it said PCT hiker to town or PCT hiker. For locals, that's enough. They get that you're a hiker. They see this every season. They know that you're just trying to get to the closest town so you can buy a bit of food. If it's a harder hitch, write the actual location, because people going down a highway might not necessarily be going where you're wanting to go. Instead of having them stop and then you having the conversation and saying, all right, yeah, I can't even help you, I'm going the wrong way. You can eliminate even that much trouble and help the decision-making process to know if they're going in the right direction in the first place. One final point to make is we still need to be safe. And so I guess to try and minimize the risk of me losing my gear or, them driving off, if they do have bad intentions and you throw your gear in the boot, you get out of the car to walk around and get your stuff, but they drive off, you lose everything. Like, the best thing about hiking is that you carry all of your possessions on your back, but the worst thing about through hiking is when you lose your backpack, because then you have nothing. So to try and avoid this, either if you're in the back seat especially, it's really easy, keep your pack on your lap. I know it's really squashy and tight, but everything in your bag is your most worldly possessions at the time, and we can have a good amount of gear is worth a lot of money. So it's, if people are clued in, they know there's a few $1,000s worth in that backpack. So I would always either keep my pack on my lap. If my pack is going in the boot or in the tray, I would take my wallet and my phone out. So I've at least got, my ID, my passport, a way of my phone, which has all of my valued photos and videos, but also a way of contacting people and trying to sort out my life again. So just keep your valuables close, and if at all possible, keep your belongings close as well. It's really, really important that you trust your gut. It is so potentially risky hitchhiking. Anyone could stop. It literally could be an axe murderer. Not that it happens very often, and not that I've experienced it. I have had nothing but 100% rate of good experience hitchhiking. But I was always smart. I never ever hitchhiked alone, and I never would have gotten in the car with someone that I either didn't trust or got a really bad feeling about. If I could smell alcohol in the car, I knew that they'd been drinking. There's so many things that you need to be aware of and be smart about. And look at the condition of the car that's pulled up as well. Does it look like a total bomb and someone that's not taking care of the vehicle itself? You know, maybe it doesn't look like it should even be registered. Maybe that's a sign that you shouldn't get in the car in the first place. It's all about keeping your wits with you and making educated decisions when you're doing this. Like I said, I've had really good experiences, but there is a time and a place for everything, and it's really for you to keep a few excuses up your sleeve and say, oh, actually, I've just realized that I was meant to be meeting a friend and they haven't arrived yet, so I'll wait a little bit longer. Or, you know, there's plenty of reasons for you to simply say, I'm actually just going to wait for the next vehicle. Get creative. I don't know, have something up your sleeve ready just in case you don't want to get into someone's car, and they can't make you either. You have a voice and feel free to use it. And same with once you're actually in a vehicle, use your voice. If someone's doing anything to make you uncomfortable, tell them. People aren't used to that level of confrontation. You know, if they're trying to be intimidating, you don't necessarily need to be intimidating back, but simply say, look, I don't want to talk about this, or I don't want to do this, or I actually, if we can pull over and stop, I'd like to get out of the car now. And a lot of people will listen to that. It's quite surprising, but instead we often freeze and don't use our voice at all. And that's when we end up in serious trouble, because we're not doing anything at all to get out of the situation that we might end ourselves up in. And it's not about being violent, and it's not about, you know, tuck and roll out of a car. Use your voice. Say, look, I actually have decided that I'm going to change my plans. Please let me out now. And they often will. So yeah, hitchhiking has been a really, really good experience and really, really contributed to my travels and to my hike. So please be safe, but go ahead and make the most of it. I really hope this video helped and gave you a little bit more confidence in your ability to hitchhike, especially out there on your trails. So good luck, happy trails. Please, please, please support me and this channel. Make sure you go and subscribe to my channel, hit the little notification button so you always know when I have a new video coming out. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. Bye, bye, bye.